You're listening to Theater in College Hoops. I'm Suvi alongside me, Taylor Damel, who, I'm just so, I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness here. He is, look, I'll just tease it and leave it at this. He's filming something that might make him famous here in a couple months. All right. So stay tuned. Taylor, if you're not famous from Theater in College Hoops, you'll be famous from this. But TD alongside me, we're brought to you by Belly Up Media. Go download, subscribe, rate, and review us on whichever device it is that you use. Your college hooper of the day, Mike Kabongo, former point guard from Texas. Yeah, I always look at your face, Taylor, when I say these names to see if I get some sort of reaction, elicit any sort of reaction. But Mike Kabongo, for some reason, he was top of mind today. He is your college hooper of the day. Check out the website at theaterandcollegehoops.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter at CBB Theater. You should also follow me at Subi232 to find out where the feet is, and make sure to follow Taylor at Taylor Damel. Let's open the curtains. Taylor, we are back. We are in the teeth of postseason play right now. So many great games this past weekend. The best way I can describe this past weekend is dramatic. So much drama this past weekend. And of course, I am talking about the love triangle between Tom Sandoval. Tom Sandoval, Ariana, and Raquel from Vanderpump Rules. I'm sure you've been briefed on this.
Holy shit. Briefed? What do you mean briefed?
I forget if you're a Bravo guy or not, or a Vanderpump guy or not.
I mean, I'm not like an everyday type of guy on that. You know, there are some college basketball games out there that I need to watch. But this is like not watching Duke, North Carolina in the Bravo world, you know. So of course I'm in, you know. So much going on with that series, with that group of people, and just all of the foreshadowing, or I guess that was done once you look back on all the Watch What Happens Live and all of that. All the people are pulling up the videos. TikTok's hot right now with this content, so I'm here for it. I'll tell you that.
Theater in West Hollywood, as I don't think I can call her a great friend of the program, Melissa Shahan had mentioned, but a friend of my wife's and a mutual friend of ours, Theater in West Hollywood. Indeed, who knows? Maybe this will even make my wife listen to one of our episodes. She'll at least listen here for the first minute or so.
That would be huge. Also, my wife as well, applicable to maybe she'll listen to the first 2 minutes. Oh shit, what was I about to say? Continue on. It was something else Vanderpump related, but excuse me, I remember. Spoiler alert. Also, this is going to be included in Backyard Beers with Taylor this week for those who follow one of my other 7 things I'm on video for currently.
Yes, very topical. I can't wait to see how you intertwine that. I thought your spring training one was brilliant, and yeah, go follow Backyard Beers with Taylor. Go follow Taylor on Instagram. But I was thinking, and this is probably where we lose our friends here and my wife at the program, but I was like, what if I were to relate this to college basketball? I think the only thing recently would be the FBI investigation, where everyone's just saying this shatters the bedrock and the foundation of college basketball. I feel like I've heard something similar along those lines in the Bravo sphere about how this is huge news and this is groundbreaking stuff. I don't know. Is there anything else that you could align this love triangle from Vanderpump to in college basketball?
Maybe like the UNC academic cheating scandal that was going on for years behind the scenes that nobody knew about.
Well, wasn't there a rumored, and I'm not trying to purport rumors, but wasn't there a rumored love triangle between like Caleb Love and RJ Davis or something at UNC this year?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something else that's along those lines. I'll have to spitball or think about this one throughout the episode. There's something in the back of my mind that I'm missing as it relates to this, but it'll come to me.
Theater is everywhere, folks. All right. It's not just college basketball. You know how much we like to align it with movies and in plays and literature. That extends to Bravo as well. That extends to reality trash TV.
Are you the Andy Cohen of college basketball?
Dude, I would kill to be Andy Cohen. I would love to be Andy Cohen. All he does is he has this incredible network that he founded, and he just gets to chat it up for 30 minutes every single night. Wouldn't that be great?
And I'll fully just admit to, like, I'm just the bartender behind the bar of Watch What
No,
Happens Live.
no,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
no,
come on.
no. If Watch What Happens Live had a co-host and if it was a two-man show, you would be that. You're not just the guy behind the bar.
I'm like the chair. I'm one of the chairs, maybe, just there for support.
You got a far bigger role than that. But all right, let's actually focus in on because while we may have gained some people talking about Vanderpump, we may have even lost some diehard theater goers that are just like, what the hell is this nonsense?
Oh, I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, can I say one thing about Mike Kabongo real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. What a pivot.
He reminds me, not in game style, but so much of Santiago Vescovi, because his name Mick didn't everyone call him Mick for like the first year when he was in high school, and then all of a sudden he was like, no, it's Mike because it's spelled Myck. I feel like this was a discussion that happened.
I could still be mispronouncing his name, but are you relating that to Vescovi because everyone was like Vescovi?
Yeah, for 3 years until he was like, no, actually, my name is this, and we're like, did at any point would you have like to have said that over the last 36 months or anything like that? So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Maybe that's on the color commentators. Hey Taylor, you're going to be my eyes here. I don't have a TV in the room that I'm recording, but right now, as we speak, St. Mary's has blown a huge lead. They're up 7 with under 2 minutes against BYU, and Charleston is only up 3 in their semifinal game against Towson. But let's go ahead, talk a little bit about what transpired this past weekend. It really was amazing. Like I said, we are in the thick of it right now. Postseason play, conference tournament play, Selection Sunday upcoming. I want to start here, though, Taylor. UNC Asheville storming back to clinch a NCAA tournament berth in the Big South against Campbell. Campbell was up like 14 with about 6 minutes to go. Drew Pember put on a great show. UNC Asheville, we've seen now, actually, funny enough, Rothstein said it. I think we're at 6 1 seeds thus far that have been eliminated. UNC Asheville was close to being number 7 or contributing to that number, but they come back. Taylor, I don't know how much you caught of this game.
Well, I'm a little surprised that you didn't want to update the theater goers on the North Dakota State score that's going on right now.
Shouldn't be in that game. But
that's fine. I think they're only up 18 at last look. That's fine. It's not like I got any shit about taking North Dakota State to go to the final, the summit.
It made me question your future parenthood skills.
But here we are again. The Bison always seem to come through. Of course, this means that they're going to blow it over the last 4.5 minutes of that game, since I brought it up. But UNC Asheville, let's get back to that. Obviously, the far and away the best team in the Big South. Like you said, Pember had a huge game. Knocked down 10 free throws from the free throw line. 10 of 12 is a lot of free throws in a college basketball game for a single player. I believe this is their 6th NCAA tournament bid, which is really cool. And actually, that's one thing I really like about the random stats that we get during this time of year. One that's actually applicable and that matters is how many times they've been to the tournament, because that just really goes to show how exciting this is for these schools. What's his face? Paul from Campbell really had a great game as well. He scored 26, kind of couldn't get it done down the stretch. And like you said, UNC Asheville rallied from 14 down. I mean, what a moment. You could say that about all these teams that make the tournament, but what a moment for all of these guys. And it really seems like, I don't know, in watching across college basketball this weekend and even live right now, it feels a little more lively to me than maybe the normal years. And maybe that's because all of the 1 seeds, or so many of the 1 seeds, have won, where it was a little bit more of an expectation that for the fans that they were going to get all the way to the end. Whereas a Campbell, for example, just continuing to talk about this game, they were 8-10 in conference. So I don't think any of their fans necessarily were like, oh shit, we better get tickets to go wherever the tournament is, And so I think maybe I'm just noticing it a little more, but that's just kind of what I've picked up over the last, couple of days of these conference tournaments.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned how many times UNC Asheville has been in, because this, compared to some of the other guys that have clinched berths, and we'll get to them, they're kind of seasoned vets. And that's how insane that, I think that's what is the driving factor for me, is seeing all these teams clinch berths for the first time in like 40 years or something along those lines, or the first time ever. But UNC Asheville, I will say, might have been a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it a wake-up call, because the goal is to make the NCAA tournament. I would assume the team that they're matched up against is going to be heavily favored in the NCAA tournament. So it's not necessarily a wake-up call, but they have that firepower, and they have the ability to make up a lead in a quick amount of time. And that's exactly what they did against Campbell. It's not like they were down 14 in the first half or down 14 with 15 minutes to go in the second half. This game was basically about 2 minutes, because if you're down 14 under 4 timeout, it's probably a wrap. They got to work very quickly, and credit Campbell. I feel like Campbell's usually in the semifinals or the finals of the Big South conference tournament. But great story coming out of Asheville, and I think they may be a trendy pick, because I think some people are saying, look, Drew Pember may not be drafted, but he could get some looks in the NBA, maybe a training camp type of workout.
Well, and you have a guy like Tajon Jones who scored 24. There aren't that many college basketball teams that can have two guys go for 20 in the same game. I know we're talking about the Big South here, but that's pretty good for any school. And you're talking about a guy in Jones, who averaged 15 this year on a pretty efficient 51% and shooting 46% from three. You got a guy like that as your second guy on the team. That's pretty good as far as anyone's concerned, whether it's a mid-major or not. And of course, like you said, Pember, is their guy, 29 points in this last game. And he averaged 21 points this year, which is top 15 scorer in college basketball, averaging 21.2 points a game. So yeah, they certainly got the firepower. Just like with any of these mid-major schools, some of these mid-major schools, they have some really good number ones and a really good number two. Look at we talked about Baylor Shireman a lot on this program. He's good enough to play at a D1 or high major Power 5 school. But are those how good is your fourth, fifth, sixth guy, seventh guy if you get there? And then that's really what makes the difference. But when you got two guys that can go from 20, this is the exact type of school that would beat like a Virginia, right? Like Pember and Jones go off for 45 points by themselves, and Virginia can barely score 60 anyway. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen or that this team is that good. I'm just saying that it's the type of school that would scare you a little bit if you were a high seed.
Kind of reminds me of that Ohio Bobcat team that beat Virginia a couple years back. I think Virginia was missing a few players as a result of COVID, but Ohio had Jason Preston. I think that was his name. Great player for Ohio, but what a comeback for UNC Asheville. That was just one of the many amazing games over the course of the weekend. They punched their ticket. Another team that punches their ticket, Taylor, for the first time ever, Kennesaw State. The Kennesaw State Owls, unbelievable effort. They win a tight one at home against Liberty. I truly believe locking up that 1 seed for them and being able to play that ASUN title game in their own gym propelled them to punch their ticket. I don't know if they win there in Lynchburg, but I talked about Kennesaw State in January. This is me maybe taking a little bit of a victory lap, but it was late January.
You should.
I appreciate that. I mean, I retweeted it a bunch of times, like when they went to the semifinal and then obviously when they won. But it was late January, and I basically said, this is a story that's unfolding that is probably the best story thus far that you may not have heard about. And it's Kennesaw State. And I'm not going to read off all of their abysmal records, essentially since they joined D1 in 2009, because I think a lot of people have said that, but it does bear repeating. The 1 year I want to highlight was, I think it was 4 years ago, one total win. And here they are now in the NCAA tournament with a really strong record. It's not like this was a terrible, terrible conference. Kennesaw State gets the job done, and the coaching job there, remarkable job. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to turn around a program that doesn't even sniff 500, and not only just to turn them around, but to get them to the NCAA tournament. There's another team, I think they're out of the SWAC, Northwestern State. They're another team that's been pretty bad, but they're second in the conference. And I may be talking about them on Thursday's episode. But Kennesaw State, man, this is one of the big things that makes March so special, is seeing a fan base and a school celebrate for the very first time. people love to say, act like you've been there before. I love it when people legitimately have never been there before. And now they can really embrace this entire week. I hope they really enjoy this entire week. But Kennesaw State, man, what a great story.
Well, and just to add on to that, they're joining Conference USA this next year. So, I mean, the timing really could not be better as you move on to kind of newer, larger, a little more prolific, let's call it, conference. Along with they're moving with Liberty, with a New Mexico State as well, which is, well, up till this year, really not a bad basketball school. So yes, feels super good for them. One of the things too is, you try and put yourself in kind of what you're saying. You kind of try and put yourself in other people's shoes, right? Like, we were fortunate enough to go to a school that is a major basketball power in a lot of ways, right? And we're fortunate in a lot of ways to be able to do that for a lot of different reasons. And so to be able to go be a student at a school like Kennesaw State for something like this is something that you just can't replicate at really a lot of other schools. And so what a cool feeling. I think we are disappointed a lot in college basketball because I think we can never, as Arizona fans, we can never get to like the peak, right? We have different like goals and, oh my God, we lost 6 games this year. Like, what a disaster and all this type of stuff. But for a team to go from Kennesaw State to go from like 1 win to go kind of get the peak of their mountain, let's call it, that's got to be such a cool feeling. That town must have just shut down that night. How fun would that have been to be, on campus at Kennesaw State, like really at the peak of their athletic existence?
And Youngblood. If we actually talk about the roster themselves, it's not just a cute story. This guy Youngblood, watch out for him in the NCAA tournament. He could become a darling, maybe like a Max Abmas from a couple of years back when they beat Ohio State. I don't necessarily know if I see Kennesaw State having the wherewithal to pull off an upset, but I don't really want to focus on that. Their personnel, their coaching, they've been tremendous all season long. And my fear when I spoke about them in late January was that they were going to taper off and tumble, because this is a conference that has low-key been owned by Richie McKay. He got an extension at Liberty. And like you had mentioned, they're leaving, but it would have been so easy for them to just fall off, maybe go to that 3 line or even 2 line and then have to play that road game. They never did. The consistency was all there. And the pressure, can you imagine the mounting pressure? We highlight it for all of these mid-major teams when they're the 1 seed. And again, I reiterate, I think 6 1 seeds have been cooked, because maybe that they felt that pressure of, we only have 6 losses on the season, but if we don't win our conference tournament, it's a wrap. Kennesaw State, on the other hand, starts to build this momentum and they're really playing with house money all season. But then they say, you know what? Let's go ahead, win this conference in the regular season. And then they say, think about that pressure of having to win your conference tournament on top of never, ever being there. And then the last point I'll make about them, you mentioned the students. How cool is it that, again, they've never, ever been there. And your 4-year window of being a student there, you get to see this team. It's a magical time. And then, sorry, I know I said the last thing, but if I'm thinking of college basketball teams in Georgia Tech's terrible. Georgia's terrible. Neither of them going to make the tournament. Not sure about Georgia State, not sure about Georgia Southern. I mean, all of Georgia has to be rallying around Kennesaw State, right?
I would say most of Georgia is probably still partying from the national championship game three months later. If you know
That's
Georgia,
yeah.
If you know Georgia at all, I'm still seeing shit from someone I know like on a regular basis. I'm like, okay, listen, I get it, but there is other stuff that's going on. Feel super pumped for them. Like I said, I do want to cut in here real quick. Charleston just went up 3 with 22 seconds left here currently. They had blown the lead. And now we're back. And then also North Dakota State did put away South Dakota State again, in case you were wondering about that. So
I was. St. Mary's also put away BYU, and just a peek behind the curtain. Taylor and I, like, it's a little late for me. It's like it's 10:22 here, Central Standard Time. It's fine for Taylor. I don't know if I'm necessarily as much of a night owl as Taylor is, but Charleston was up like 13, and I texted him and I said, "Look, under 8 timeout. Let's get this going." And of course this happened. So Taylor, I'm glad you have eyes. Continue to keep us posted. But Kennesaw State, one of the best stories thus far. They might be the Cinderella. heading into March Madness. Another great Cinderella and another great Cinderella story. Who's the Cedric the Entertainer? Stand up, baby. Cape Girardeau. Stand up. Southeast Missouri State. I remember a couple of years ago, Taylor, when I started the whole theater in and then for every single game, and I would look at some of these college towns and I'd be like, where the fuck is Cape Girardeau? What is Southeast Missouri State? Who are these people? I know I'm just tweeting out into the abyss, and some of the followers are just like, I don't care about Southeast Missouri State versus Tennessee Tech. Well, you should have. In the OVC title game, Southeast Missouri State wins a thriller. Tennessee Tech, they hit a game-tying shot to force overtime, but they thought they had won it. Unfortunately for Tennessee Tech, the foot was on the line, coached by John Pelfrey, by the way, who was on that great Kentucky team. But SEMOOOO in the NCAA tournament. You got any update before you want to talk about SEMOOOO?
Charleston wins right now as we speak. But who picked SEMOOOO in the Jerome? That's who I want to shout out right now.
I think someone did. You're right.
Someone did pick. I can't remember who it was.
I think it was Johnny Freeze. Let me confirm though from Keeper Board.
That sounds correct. Yeah,
that's a real name, by the way.
That's a hell of a pick. Yeah, Johnny Freeze, who picked SEMOOOO to win. Like that's just you're just making shit up.
Johnny Freeze gets a 9 bomb from Southeast Missouri State to lead the field. Wild.
The leader of this conference and far and away the favorite, speaking of once he's going down, was Morehead State. They won the conference by 3. There was a 3-way tie for third place with UT Martin, Tennessee State, and Southeast Missouri State. God, I love, even though we do this all year, when you're going through like the Jerome and kind of harkening back to what you were just saying, and you're looking at am I going to pick Lindenwood or Southern Illinois University Edwardsville? It's one of my favorite things that we do, or that I do, I should say, across the entire year, not just one of the favorite things we do here as it relates to college basketball. But I'm also not going to sit here and act like I know a single fucking thing about Southeast Missouri State. I actually knew a little bit about like Kennesaw and Asheville and whatever, because they've been a little bit on the radar this year, but I don't know a damn thing about Southeast Missouri. And I'm happy about that. I'll blindly take them, follow them, wherever now at this point, but super pumped for them. Not like I knew anything about Tennessee Tech, to be quite honest with you either. I looked at Morehead State because that was my pick for the Jerome. I believe that got me nowhere on that one. But again, not to beat a dead horse here, but pumped for Southeast Missouri State. Did you say that this was their first tournament bid, or where are we on that?
I don't think it's their first tournament bid. I'm pretty sure Kennesaw is the only one that has never been before. I think SEMOOOO, I can't remember the last time SEMOOOO was there, but I think they have been there. So,
excuse me. Yes, they have. They went in 2000. So I think this is their second. Yeah, this is their second tournament berth. Here's something that I'm learning live on air. God, actually, there's so much I like about this team already. Their head coach name is Brad Korn with a K.
I love it. Great band.
As in the band. Yeah. And they
backwards K. Wasn't Korn backwards K though?
I believe so. Like a strikeout, essentially, or whatever. And even better, their arena name is called the Show Me Center in the Show Me State.
We should have known. I wish I didn't do enough research.
No wonder Johnny Freeze picked this team. There's so much to like about them.
Yeah, I totally get it. But Southeast Missouri State, good for you guys. Much like Kennesaw. And again, I love it when I reference Georgia State, right? But they're in Atlanta, and that's not taking anything away from them. But I don't know anything about Kennesaw. I don't know, which is only, I think, 25 miles outside of Atlanta. I don't know anything about Cape Girardeau. But I hope their fans are truly enjoying this, especially in the fashion in which they beat Tennessee Tech. But Tennessee Tech, by the way, another team that deserves a ton of credit for what they did. And I think, Taylor, one of my favorite parts of these lower seeds winning, and it's very obvious, but when you hear it out loud, the announcers say these guys have won 4 games in 4 nights or 3 games in 3 nights to win the title. Do you realize how impressive that is? Do you realize how impressive it is to play 40 minutes of postseason do or die basketball back to back to back to back and win it? That's unbelievable. And you just got to feel so happy and thrilled because they're probably so exhausted. And I know some hardos are going to be like, well, they're 18, 19-year-old kids. They should have enough juice in the tank. Shut up. Go play at a high level college basketball game like that on back to back to back to back nights. And then to be the last team standing again, SEMOOOO, enjoy your week, man.
Well, just to make a point about that, there's so much when you're picking the Jerome or your bracket or just watching March Madness. I know this kind of goes without saying, but you're really highlighting how much luck or good fortune really goes into winning your conference tournament and winning the NCAA tournament just in general. I mean, you obviously, one of the great teams is generally the team that wins the big dance. But there are so many teams that get unlucky compared to the team that wins, and they just kind of get the ball that bounces their way the most often. Because, even if you win your conference, there aren't that many times that you probably win on a 6-game win streak for the year. Even if you win, especially if you win, you win one of the major conferences. Even in these mid-major conferences, some of these guys are not everyone's like an Oral Roberts going undefeated. So it really goes to show you how much like good fortune goes into every single one of these. And that's why we see all the upsets. I know that this isn't like a hot take or anything like that, but you're really just highlighting how much of it goes into all of this.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the win streak because if we move on, I'm going to stick with the mid majors, everyone. I hope you're okay with that because we spent all year talking about the big guys. This week right now belongs to the mid majors.
That's next week. Yeah, right.
But you talk about those win streaks, Taylor. And on the flip side of that, and you know what? Send my deepest condolences to your mother. But you talk about win streaks entering conference play. Eastern Washington, 18 straight wins, I believe it was, only to get chopped down by the Lumberjacks on a buzzer-beating shot. That was the upset of the weekend. And in my estimation right now, NAU is the story of the weekend because Eastern Washington was dominant all season in the Big Sky. And here comes little old NAU. Flagstaff stand up. Tequila Sunrise, baby. Tommy Lloyd's kid, Liam Lloyd, who's hit a game winner earlier this year. But man, Eastern Washington, a clear-cut 1 seed that I think a lot of folks took in the Jerome. Hofstra also goes down. And Youngstown State also goes down. But Taylor, out of those three, did EWU stand out to you the most like it did to me?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm always, really watching that conference more than any other kind of mid-major conference, just simply because I have a lot of connections to an Eastern Washington, to a Montana State, to an NAU. And so I'm always trying to piece together what I'm rooting for and all that in that conference. And so I'm like, Michelle's in town this week. Let's get these Eagles a dub, And then so that was only my reasoning, other than the fact that they were the obvious pick, in that conference because they were won 18 in a row or whatever. So yeah, a little disappointing that was the one kind of tournament I went with on my Jerome that was, the most chalky, I guess, let's call it. I don't know how they're gonna react there back in Cheney, Washington about this. Maybe go down to Zips, have a burger and a hurricane, like an Oreo hurricane, I think is what they're called. Maybe go to No Lie Brewing there in Spokane, have a beer, and try and avoid all the Gonzaga fans who are still have yet to tip tonight as this is being recorded. Yeah. But no, that was probably the biggest one because NAU wasn't exactly what we would call a world-beating basketball team. I'd watched a number of their games this year just because they were, local to me in a way, or the closest thing that was on it. Like, speaking of a night owl, at like 11 p.m., they're still playing Tarleton State or something like that. So I would still watch that. But a surprising loss for sure. And I feel bad for Michelle, Trish, and my grandma, my Eastern folks.
Yeah, send my condolences, like I said. And this just speaks to the finality of March and how abrupt seasons can end. I mean, I'm telling you, you're going 75 miles per hour, and then there's a pile up on the highway, and you have to slam on the brakes to avoid the car in front of you. Boom, That's exactly what is happening and happened to a team like Eastern Washington, because how do you describe, how do you explain to an 18-year-old kid that, yeah, you did all this hard work, you accumulated this great record, you're playing hotter than potentially any other team in the entire country, just from a win-loss perspective, and then here comes NAU to completely ruin that? It is a tough pill. It is a very tough pill to swallow for mid-major players, to be like, coach, I hear what you're saying in the post-game locker room. I hear that you're asking me to think of the bigger picture and keep this season in context, but everyone knows that you're not judged by what you do from November up until like late February. You're judged on what happens now. No one's going to remember that 18-game winning streak for Eastern Washington. No one's really going to remember the amazing story of Hofstra and how Speedy Claxton got him right. Nobody's going to remember how awesome Youngstown State really was. They're probably, though, when we reconvene for the Jerome next year, Taylor, we're going to be like, no, maybe I'll take NAU because they pulled off that upset, or maybe I'll take UNCW, who, by the way, is a win away from the NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, Kevin Keats, former UNCW coach, still on the bubble, and then Youngstown State, the Norse, who have been amazing in the horizon as well. It just, the finality of it is such a gut punch. At least in the NCAA tournament, you made it. You had the week of preparation. You had the fanfare. You had your fans behind you. Man, not winning your tournament after being the clear-cut best team. Gosh, indescribable.
Is the Big Sky, did they get a day off? Am I reading this incorrectly? Like, so we just talked about winning 4 games in 4 days.
Idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now, and I'm like, okay, wait a second. We're recording. Yeah, they don't play until the tonight of this recording. Huh, interesting. So they're not.
Did I see Idaho State?
Yeah, there are games
Montana
being played right now for the Big Sky, but NAU doesn't play until Tuesday.
Oh, I see.
The night of this being recorded. Because what I was about to bring up is, to be honest with you, I looked at if NAU had won their game after Eastern, which I don't think they're going to either. So how disappointing is it when not only, if you're Eastern Washington, right, you lose to this team and then they just lose the next game. At least it's like if they went on a run, to the tournament or something miraculous, you could be like, oh yeah, well, I guess there'd be a little bit in the back of your mind that would kind of comfort you. But I think they're going to get smoked by Montana. So I don't know. It's got to be an insult to injury type of situation, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know. Look, I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I know the ins and outs of the Big Sky, or like we said, Southeast Missouri State. We're doing our best here, but they deserve this coverage, and they deserve all the plaudits.
So just a personal story for a second about this. So my uncle is in town, who is a Wazoo alum, but he was wearing a Montana Grizzly jacket this weekend when I saw him, and we had a beer out at a golf course as I was waiting for my tea time. And there was a guy wearing an Eastern Washington shirt there as well. And he was literally saying, yeah, man, big game today. And my uncle's not a basketball guy at all. So he's probably thinking, oh yeah, he's wearing a Montana shirt today. It's obvious, it's March Madness, whatever. Sitting, watching basketball at a bar. I just thought that was kind of funny, where it'd be like, oh man, it's going to be a tight one today or whatever. And my uncle was like, yeah, okay. And I'm like, Kev, you got the shirt. Yeah, I had to do a little explaining there. So just a little personal story there in case you were wondering.
Look, people like their own things. I get that. But I know I'm going to be a guy that comes off as, please like my sport. I'm okay if you don't want to watch college basketball all season, but you have to watch conference tournaments. I've long said now for about a decade to 15 years that it is underrated. Everyone, when they talk about March Madness, they always refer to the NCAA tournament. The conference tournaments sometimes give you more absurd and crazy endings. Which
not sometimes. Like, yeah.
Well, the stakes aren't as high as what I would say. Like, right. Like,
yeah, but the actual like craziness of it is
sure.
Is more. Yeah. Because you get an NAU that had 5 conference wins that takes down the number 1 team. And that only happens, to that shocking of a degree, once up maybe per March Madness, where like a 15 beats a 2 type of deal. There's a lot of, 12 over 5, 13 over 4, so on and so forth. But to get something that big is pretty common in the conference tournament instead of in the NCAA tournament.
And common is not a bad thing, right? You think, oh, you just get
No,
tired
of
of it,
course.
you're over it. No, every single year, some of these shots and the reactions, man, the reactions are the best when you see the players just erupt from the bench, start sprinting over and dogpile. We saw that with NAU. The only other mid-major item I want to talk about, hug for South Alabama, very close against Louisiana. Hat tip to Louisiana for punching their ticket. Jordan Brown, that's a name we know well. He played at Arizona, former McDonald's All-American. I think he had 13 points and 16 rebounds. He could be a force down low. He has the talent to play at a high level, and he's shown that he can. He was the sixth man of the year in the Pac-12 actually when he was at Arizona. So they got a stud in Jordan Brown to the Raging Cajuns. But I want to hat tip South Alabama because they did have a miraculous run in their conference tournament, but they fell just short. They took a 3 to tie it, and it was in and out, just rattled in and out, which is exactly what happened to Hofstra, but I have a little less sympathy for them considering they were the 1 seed. South Alabama, oh so close to maybe punching their ticket, but it goes to the Raging Cajuns.
How old is Jordan Brown at this point?
That's a good question, man. I've lost complete track with the transfer
I
rules and the
mean,
COVID year. I have
is
no idea.
he even on his parents' insurance anymore at this point? I mean, this dude's been around a while. He was the six man. Yeah, when was that? 4 years, like 3 years ago.
Sean
Yeah,
Miller was the head coach. Is I suppose all you really need to know.
right. So yeah, it's several years ago at least at this point. So yeah, great name drop there. But you're right. I mean, he's got all the physical tools. It's a guy that never would have gone to a Louisiana, right out of high school. Obviously went to school like like in Arizona after transferring, all that type of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, he's got all the tools to be a real menace there in a tournament style game, because it's something that he's done before. And rarely do you get that at a Louisiana, like you said, a McDonald's All-American and someone who has NCAA tournament experience at a major school. So yeah, could be a big factor there heading into next week.
Just an awesome weekend, Taylor. Just an awesome weekend. I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything in terms of the crazy finishes while also marrying that with the teams that punched their tickets. But I think we got them for the most part.
Yeah, I believe so. The tough part about this time of year for me, as a betting man, not if I was a betting man, as a betting man, is it's a little hard to do any research because we don't, until right now, we don't even know what the games are. I know this, again, is not like a hot take or anything like that, but, when we get over to our bets part of the program here coming up, it's a little tough because at 9:41 Mountain Standard Time on a Monday night, half the games don't even have like a line out yet because the previous game was just decided. So we'll do our best in that, but it also makes it so exciting because you can just fly off the handle and it's really, as we just talked about, you can take some of these flyers and feel like, oh, maybe I got a shot at this. Maybe NAU will beat Eastern, and that's what you kind of like about it. And again, going back to how crazy the conference tournament is for a guy who like me, who likes to throw about 97 random parlays in, it's great because I'm just like, yeah, I think, yeah, maybe they will hit a buzzer beater. Fuck it, let's throw it in.
The other thing about these conference tournaments that it just brings a wry smile to my face is when you look at the conference winners and you're like, how did I not see this coming? How did I not see South Alabama going to their conference title game? Come on, Subi, right? You're like, oh, that actually could make sense. That's not terrible. I mean, the NAU thing is completely far-fetched, but in taking UNC Greensboro in the SoCon as opposed to Furman or a Chattanooga who ran it back, what an awesome game it was last year, and Furman exercises their demons there. I'm happy for them, but you just look back and you're like, gosh, I wish I was able to identify that upset pick.
So if I may be a little bit of a downer, I'm not sure this is a downer comment, but it might be viewed as such. The randomness of these conference tournaments is exactly why, like, the regular season title is probably who should be the team that gets if we're taking like the excitement part of it out, because it's like, okay, this team was far and away the best team in this conference, and the team that won has absolutely no shot in the NCAA tournament, right? And I get that's all the joy of this and stuff, but so I often push back on people who want to talk about how important the conference tournaments are, because it's really the regular season that, in my opinion, is the most important. But you just can't take away this fun, the excitement. It is an entertainment-based product that we're talking about here. So I'm not saying we should get rid of conference tournaments by anything like that, but just as we pick our brackets going forward, like not taking the 6th seed out of whatever, if it was the 1 seed, like if it was Eastern Washington, not to just, talk about them only, but if it was Eastern Washington, I'd be like, okay, maybe they could sneak one in the tournament. I'm not taking like a random 6 seed to have won this, like Southeast Missouri. I'm not taking
their first round.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they're not even going to make it out of Dayton, really,
if
they're going to be probably at this point the worst team to make it. But it's just it's a common discussion this time of year, something that we know a lot about because it was a Lute Olson thing. He said we don't need these conference tournaments because we know we've already decided who the best team in the conference was. We've played 20 games to figure this out, and it's just got to be tough. The finality, like you said, of it, it's like, God, we dominated everybody all year, and it doesn't matter. Even Charleston's got like 30 fucking wins, and they're like, maybe they're not going to make it.
Yeah, bubble team. And you know what? They had a dogfight against Towson. I wouldn't expect the title game against Wilmington to be any different. I would substitute a word. I know you use the word important when it comes to title games or regular season. I would say impressive. Like I've always said, the team that wins the regular season is the most impressive, but it doesn't really mean diddly. That's just the reality of the situation. And here's one little quick thing, Taylor. I didn't know this. Maybe this makes me less of a college basketball guy. Maybe I need my podcast completely stripped away. And I'd be open to that discussion. But I had no idea that the automatic qualifier as a result of winning the NCAA tournament or the conference tournament is a decision made by conferences. It's not an NCAA rule. And so Seth Davis tweeted this out. I didn't know this, and it makes total sense. But Seth Davis is like, look, this is a conference thing. And the reason is because no TV station, no company is going to Taylor did the money sign, the Manziel. No TV station is going to want to televise these conference games if there's no stakes to it. Right. And that makes total sense because a team like give me a team like Furman, they finished first in the SoCon. No one's going to watch that conference tournament because if that's not an automatic qualifier, Furman's also not going to get in as a quote unquote at large. But I didn't know that. I thought it was an NCAA rule.
So I think I knew this only just in the last couple of years because of COVID. Because I know that this happened to someone who we're freelancing here. Someone didn't get to play in the conference title game, and so they sent the team that won the regular season title. And I can't remember who that happened to, but I do know that it happened. There was some situation like that where they either sent the second place team or something.
So they didn't just play the tournament.
I think they got to a point in the tournament, if I remember correctly, and then there was a COVID outbreak, and so they sent like the other team that didn't have COVID. Oh. And I'm not saying it's an exact situation to what you're saying. I'm thinking that's just the only reason I know that this is a thing is because I know during COVID that something. I'm sure I'm getting some of the specific details wrong, but I do know that something to that effect happened in the 2020 season specifically. Or 2021 seasons, I should say.
Yeah, but conference tournaments have been amazing so far. I've had a real blast. Hope you've been enjoying that. Let's talk just real quick, Taylor, about some of the bigger programs. I know we wanted to dedicate this majority of it to the mid-majors, but there was some great action from the power teams and arguably the most powerful team. Houston escapes Memphis, a buzzer beater, Jamal. Take them to the woodshed with the game winner there. Awesome game between those two. Memphis looks good, but Houston just too tough, too experienced down the stretch. Penn State, they keep their dream alive. There was barely any breath a couple weeks ago, but slowly and surely there's a little bit more air entering the lungs of the Penn State Nittany Lions. I'm a Micah Shrewsbury guy. You must be the other guy. They, like I said, keep the dream alive against Maryland on a buzzer beater. Seth Lundy, I want to just give a quick shout out. Seth Lundy took the three, missed it, but he followed his shot, jarred the ball a little looser, at least created enough disruption because Maryland had three guys there ready to get it. And Seth Lundy followed and crashed the boards. And then it went to Cam Winter. I think it was his second game winner in as many weeks. So Penn State still surviving. And then Indiana outlasting Michigan in kind of a comedy of errors down the stretch. But look, Michigan's done. And that's why also, Taylor, tying it back to the mid-majors, I need the SEMOOOOs. All right. I need the NAUs. Give me some bid stealers. I don't want to hear anything about Michigan or Wisconsin or Oklahoma State. None of that nonsense. But those were some 3 big games there from the power teams.
I don't even give a shit about Maryland. There's no, I mean, it's hard to be
they're
worse.
ranked.
Yeah, but it's hard to be worse away from home than Maryland is. Ohio State somehow accomplished being worse away from home than Maryland did this year. But the only teams that had less conference wins conference wins on the road in the Big Ten was Minnesota, who sucks, and Ohio State. So Maryland only won 2 games on the road this year. That's wild. And I don't know if that necessarily applies to neutral site games, right? But that's pretty bad for a team at that level. I will say, and this isn't to do with the fact that I'm wearing an Arizona hat. We talked about Arizona, but UCLA, I will go out on a limb and say I was impressed with UCLA. I have been a detractor of them this year for pretty obvious reasons in my own mind, at least. But I was impressed with them. They are far and away deserving of a 1 seed, in my opinion, at this point. Houston, of course, I think sometimes when you're the number 1 team in the country, or you've been top 5 all year or whatever, and then of course you're playing on the road on a senior night with a good team, it doesn't surprise me that game was close. But it really goes to show how kind of gritty, we know that they're gritty, and they just keep proving to us that they are probably the team to beat in college basketball. And I think if Houston was, we've talked about this all year, we've talked about this for the entirety that this program has existed, actually, is if Houston was a UCLA or a Duke or a North Carolina or a Kentucky or whatever, in Indiana even, people would be losing their shit about how good that they are, but year over year, it's like, oh yeah, Houston, they're good. It's like they're good. They've been a 1 seed all year. There's never been a point during this year that they've been a 1 seed. I know a discussion that I saw online today was, how bad is this crop of potential 1 seeds that are coming up? And it's like, well, fuck, Houston's as good as any 1 seed we've ever really had. I mean, they're not lower than anybody. I'm not saying that they're the best team of all time, but they certainly rank right up there with every other group of 1 seeds. Same with UCLA at this point as well. So I got to push back on all that type of shit, because we've been talking about it all year. Like, oh, everyone sucks. No, Houston's fucking dope. Alabama is great. UCLA is great. These are a great group of high-level tournament teams, So, super, long story short, super impressed with Houston as per usual. Tough environment, tough game on the road against a good Memphis team, and came away impressing me again.
I'm glad you said all of that, Taylor, because my stance as well. Everyone sucks. Why aren't teams more like 2015 Kentucky or like Baylor, who lost 2 games over the course of like 3 seasons or whatever it was? Sorry, man. If you're comparing the 4th 1 seed to 2015 Kentucky or that Baylor team, yeah, I guess you could say that they suck or they would lose. But no, you're right. Houston is great. Bama went 16-2 in a very difficult, I don't know if I'll say very difficult SEC, but a really good SEC. Wasn't on the level of the Big 12, but a really good SEC, right? And UCLA, this is another thing, and it's a argument that's kind of a moot point, because if you're good enough, if you're in the breadth of the UCLAs and the Purdues, which is that's the argument, it shouldn't really matter what your seed is. And I that's how I subscribe. I like to think, look, if I'm at that level, if I'm playing at that level, I don't care what the seed is next to me. I expect to beat any team, but UCLA should be the 1 seed over Purdue, in my estimation. They haven't had the opportunities that Purdue has had in conference. Sure, that's fair. But I think their resumes, first of all, I think UCLA's resume is slightly better. But even if you want to say Purdue's is better or comparable, just look at the 2 teams. Please just look at the 2 teams. UCLA locks you up defensively. They have Jaime Jaquez. They have Tiger Campbell. It sucks that they lost Jalen Clark. I wouldn't be surprised if Adem Bona provides some sort of defensive resistance. Let's say if they were to go up against a Zach Edey, that would not shock me. Even though if Bona is a freshman, he's a freak. He's huge. Amari Bailey's coming along really well. I genuinely think if you just take a step back and use your eyes, God forbid, as opposed to crunching numbers 24/7, you'll see that UCLA is a better team. I truly think UCLA is a better team than Purdue and is deserving of the 1 seed over them.
I wonder what the committee will do with the Jalen Clark injury, because if UCLA loses in an early conference tournament game here, and it looks like that's what they're missing is someone like Jalen Clark, who shoots the ball pretty well, just as a general sense. He's about 50% from the floor for the year, but he scores 13 points a game. UCLA is not the greatest offensive team in the world by any means. So if it looks like they struggle, especially if they struggle in the first game and then lose the second game, something like that, that's about the only thing I would say that maybe the committee doesn't give them a 1 seed, just because they can. I know Jalen Clark's not Hawkins or Tiger Campbell, but
it's their best defender.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, he doesn't have the name cachet that those guys do. If either of those guys had gotten hurt, then they wouldn't be a 1 seed simply because of that. But I think Jalen Clark is probably good enough for the committee to look at it and be like, well, they only scored 58 against Stanford, in Vegas. Maybe this team is going to lack a little bit without him. But I still think they should be 1 seed regardless.
Look, and despite all of what you're saying, we need a rubber match. Arizona UCLA Pac-12 title game. We need that rubber match for sure. All right, Taylor, let's go ahead, get to your bets. Get in my belly time after this quick timeout.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
Taylor, real quick, you actually referenced the Gonzaga-San Francisco game. That game still hasn't tipped yet. St. Mary's,
no.
Get off the
floor. Up for hours. I'm gonna be up for hours.
Hey, I might join you, man. All right, let's recap. Last time, you gave us some winners. Illinois -4.5 against Michigan did not hit. Wisconsin +4 against Purdue did. Purdue wins that, but did not cover. And then Arizona -1.5 against USC. They took care of business, won by double digits. Taylor, that puts you at 21-23 on the season, shooting 47.7%. I know we can get to 50.
It's not going to make you a lot of money. What is disappointing is that each of the last 2 weeks, I have lost one of the games by half a point by the hook. So that's a little disappointing. We'd be in a significantly different position, not from a win percentage situation, but from a parlay percentage situation. That would have been like our 5th and 6th of the year, which really would put us well over the dollar amount that we're looking to gain this year. But that's okay. We've got time left. There's time left in this season to survive and advance here. So let's do so. We're going to start with our first game in Vegas today. We're going to go with Cal Baptist, the Lancers, over the Abilene Christian Wildcats, one of the 733 schools that have Wildcats as their name. I'm not sure if there's any other Lancers out there, though. Cal Baptist straight up just has a better record. They're favored by 1, so we're going Cal Baptist -1. A decent offensive team, actually. They were good offensively in the non-conference, not quite as good in conference play. And actually, in the last 2 meetings, Abilene beat them this year twice. So it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So I'm rolling Cal Baptist with the revenge game on this one. This is not gonna make some people happy that are avid listeners of this program, who my next game is, but we're going to take LaSalle, favored by a point over the Rhode Island Rams. Now, LaSalle, the Explorers and Lancers is what we have so far. And I think they're going to explore the next round of the tournament here after a win over a pretty hapless Rhode Island team. There's not a positive thing to say about Rhode Island. Is there? Sue, do you want to have anything positive to say about them?
Future could be bright with Archie Miller.
Not good enough for this game then. So we're going LaSalle. And who is your favorite? Sorry, I'm going to bring you in twice on this, Sue.
Please.
Who's your favorite LaSalle grad basketball?
So I'm going to forget his name. I just know he had the Southwest Philly floater.
I think it's just the South Philly floater.
Golly. So
No, it was a Southwest. No, you're right. You are correct.
Southwest?
I'm wrong.
All
That's why you're the Andy Cohen and I'm the bartender. That was Ty Garland.
Ty Garland.
Yeah. Still follow him on Twitter for some reason. Another guy I still follow on Twitter is the Florida Gulf Coast guy with the dreads.
Sherwood Brown.
Yeah. Woo woo.
Hey, look, do me a favor, or I can take a look at it. If they got the little mail icon, if I can DM them, I'm going to DM them to see if they want to come on.
Actually, that'd be a good one. Sherwood Brown would be a really good one. So we're going LaSalle -1 over Rhode Island, and then third, but certainly not least here, we're going to go with the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks over the Dixie State Trailblazers. Are they still called Dixie State? Or are they Utah? Some shit. I think they're Utah.
Yeah, I think
right?
Dixie is taboo now.
Sorry, I've just offended at least one or two of our listeners by saying the name.
No,
of the
maybe
school.
it was it is Utah Tech.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's Utah.
I think so. That's funny because the site that I'm using still has them as Dixie State or a team that shall not be named. That game tips off in Vegas at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight. So talking about staying up late, here we go. These Vegas games are just ridiculous, by the way, for all of these non-conference tournaments. And actually, let me talk about Vegas for a minute, if I may. Pac-12 tournament is always in Vegas. I think that's a pretty common knowledge there, but there's like 5 other tournaments going on in Vegas right now. And we always talk about, going up for this one or at the T-Mobile Center. If there's a basketball court in Vegas, there is a conference tournament going on of some kind on it. So Vegas, not just good for conference tournament weeks that you can remember or March Madness, but good even the first weekend in March too. So in review, and Stephen F. Austin -1.5 over Dixie State or Utah Tech. Over the Trailblazers. Excuse me. We've got LaSalle over Rhode Island by 1, and we've got Cal Baptist over Abilene by 1.
With your desire to keep calling it Dixie State, are you okay with me being the Andy Cohen, a person?
Am I gonna get canceled here? 58 minutes into our podcast, I'm getting canceled.
Look, we honestly might be getting canceled regardless with the Bravo intro, but I like that, T. I like that. All right. You're right. There's so many damn tournaments in Vegas. Absolutely.
It's
insane.
so fun. It's so fun because, I got up to the Pac-12 tournament a lot of times. And if you get up there early enough, you can catch the championship games of these little tournaments on like the Tuesdays and the Wednesdays. And yes, I have gone up that early to Vegas for a Pac-12 tournament that doesn't end until Sunday. And that was rough drive home. It's really a great time to be there.
I can give you 48 hours of hard pressing in Vegas, right? But after that, I might be dead. Taylor, let's go ahead, get on out of here on some good things. What do you got for me?
So I've got Lafayette, a school that has 12 wins this year. The Leopards,
they need 12.
Oh, excuse me. They have 11 wins this year. The Leopards, speaking of good mascots, this is a team that started off 0-4 this year and then pushed that out to like 1-12, I think at one point, and then like 2-15 or 3-15. And they somehow have made it to their conference title game. They're playing Colgate, who is going to absolutely wipe the damn floor with them. But excited that they made it. I don't think anybody took Lafayette in the Jerome, by the way, but that would have been a huge point total. But, if you looked at every other team in this conference, Colgate won this conference by 6 games. They're 17-1, or we're 17-1 in conference this year. And Lafayette only finished 4 back of Navy. So maybe who was in second place. So maybe it wasn't as crazy as you would think it is, but it actually is. But if they beat Colgate, which is completely out of left field, this would probably be the worst maybe one of the worst teams to ever make the NCAA tournament. But I'm here. I'm ready for it. I'm going to be rooting hard for that. Lafayette let's get them.
I love it. You know what their hashtag is?
Oh, please tell.
It's a couple of years ago, we dug up some hashtags from mid-major teams, and some of them were just so funny, like take the stairs or stalk an ambush, which was really creepy, actually. But these guys, they are roll pards,
Oh, the
short
old
for
pards.
leopard. Yeah,
Who
roll
calls leopard?
pards. Dude, okay, so there's roll pards, and then Furman. I tweeted this, but it is so ridiculous that Furman has on a D1 uniform printed just DINs. For obviously short for Paladins, but I'm just like,
Paladins.
what? DINs? Like that's something I would text you in an effort to
Go Dins.
like abbreviate my text when I'm too lazy to type it out. I wouldn't expect it to be printed on a Division I college basketball jersey. So roll pards and go DINs, I guess.
Can I talk about a bad thing real quick? That
Sure.
would be Nike's decision to change their shirts each year to just whatever it was. Like now it's just like all in or just us or whatever. Like they do like a common one for everyone.
We
And
on.
I missed the days of when each team had like a custom one, like Spartan up or whatever, Devil Down, all this type of stuff. Those were the better days because we have a whole segment on it about the best shirts of the year. I don't know, maybe we'll see it. It is a little early. I haven't seen them listed on any of the school websites yet. Maybe they'll bring back some customization.
I was going to wait till next week to talk about just the small, funny intricacies of the NCAA tournament. That's one of them, just the ridiculous sayings on the shooting shirts. It's just something that you like, it'll be like play fast, or it'll be like D up, or I don't know, like 10 feet, whatever the dimensions of the court are. Some of this nonsense. And then also the commercials. I want to forewarn people, get ready to be inundated with like Reggie Miller sitting at the Wendy's table, the Wendy's commercials, the Capital One commercials, which are always hysterical. Don't forget about Kim Keats, investor for Invesco QQQ. It's disgusting how I remember all of these and they're seared into my brain, but they're coming back for us.
Melania Weintraub or whatever with the AT&T commercials should be there a lot as well. But speaking of those sayings, a friend of the program, Cody Hoxie, one of the things he always makes fun of is when people in their post-game interviews are like, yeah, we just had to get out there and play Furman basketball today, and it's like, okay, like you don't play any different basketball than anybody else, Okay, there's maybe like 2 teams in the country that can say that, like get out there and play Houston basketball. Be like, okay, yeah, they're kind of have like a really gritty style, but it's like whatever your school version of basketball is almost indistinct from difference wise from almost every other school out there. So I always just think that's funny. And that happens in professional football, it happens in everything. We just had to get out there and play Chiefs football. It's like what, throw, pass, run, and win. Yeah, I mean, like it's everything.
This is how warped my brain is. We're going to do a full circle on those sayings on shooting shirts, right? Because it'll just say Furman basketball. And that's what it, or like in the early days, that's just what it was. And it was obviously in reference to the school and the entity that you're representing. But if you ask a coach, they'll be like, no. Furman basketball is specific to the type of brand of basketball that we play. It's all just going to come full circle. It's going to be just the shooter shirts are just going to say Furman basketball. And we're going to oversimplify it to the point where it's complicated. I don't know if that makes sense.
So I am looking at what they have, what Nike has, and it's so disappointing.
Is it Soul?
Yes.
I don't understand it. Usually there's wordplay like ball in, all in.
I mean, obviously it's just a play on words with Nike being a shoe brand and your team having soul, like Arizona in your soul. I can't believe they just cut out that side of the marketing department during COVID. They're just like, let's just come up with like a random bullshit basketball something related or shoe related. Could have been so much better. A lot of room, a lot of meat left on that bone in the marketing department.
Well, that job, whoever greenlights what gets printed on the shirts, and then just people who greenlight movies like Cocaine Bear and all this other stuff. American Poop. Go look it up on IMDb.
Hold on. Cocaine Bear. I mean, no, but it looks like at least it would be somewhat exciting to like laugh about at least.
I suppose that's fair.
As a non-movie guy, at least it got people talking about it.
That's true. Somehow slithered its way here into theater and college hoops. But yeah, I'm looking forward to those shooting shirts. Let me get to my good thing and get on out of here. Taylor, my good thing, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this young man's name properly, and I apologize if I'm not, but Erman Plotnikov, spelled German. That's his first name, Erman Plotnikov. You may be asking, who is that? Well, he's a Belarusian player for Hofstra, and hug for Erman and Hofstra because they did indeed lose. But his mom was in attendance and was able to catch this game. And I think this was the first time in 3.5 years that she was able to see him play basketball. There's a little clip of him actually shooting free throws during the game, and his mom is mimicking it or trying to show him how to do it. Like she's got the stroke down in the stands. It's almost like Rookie of the Year when Henry Rowan Gardner's mom is like, float it, right? That's what his mom was doing, I think. But in all seriousness, this is just an awesome story. And I hope we get plenty more of these, because these are young men that have sacrificed and committed so much to these programs. And when they get the bright lights on them, right? The NCAA tournament to me is more about the Plotnikovs, and it's more about the Furmans, and it's more about the SEMOOOOs, and it's more about the Kennesaw States, because we're going to talk about Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas. We're going to talk about UCLA next year, every single year from here on out. I don't know the next time we're going to be talking about Kennesaw State. Even a team like Northwestern finishing second, the bright lights are on them. So I hope we see more of these stories where, and when I talk about the commitment that these young men have made, right, sometimes that means not seeing their family for so long. And we have a ton of international players, an influx of international and important international players. Okay, Charleston. Who was that guy that scored 13 straight? Reed, I'm blanking on his name. Or Rain
Smith, the Australian.
Rain Smith, the Australian, right? I want to give a sincere hug to the Plotnikov family, especially his mom, because it just warms my heart. It really does warm my heart to see these kids being able to play in front of their parents on the biggest stage in postseason basketball. And I hope, and I'm almost going to guarantee we're going to be able to see that in the NCAA tournament.
Well said, Mr. Subramanian. I can't echo those thoughts anymore.
We're bearing in on it. All right. Week 2 Jerome picks are coming out on Thursday. I don't know if we're going to have the same crew as last time, but this is when we get into the heavy hitters. I know I just waxed poetically on the mid-majors, and I'm just, this is what the NCAA tournament's all about. All right. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, right.
All right. Let's hit Thursday now and get to the power guys. But we're looking forward to it. Thank you as always for listening. We will catch you next time here on Theater and College Hoops.